7, and let's get into it. So, last week was the winter meetings, and unfortunately, your boy was not correct on what exactly was going to go down. I said the Mets needed to make a splash. They did not make a splash, well, not a positive one. Anyway, as breaking news last week, obviously, everybody's had a chance to digest it a little bit. We're still going through the motions, still going through what actually is reality, and that is that Pete Alonso is no longer a New York Met. He is going to Baltimore on a 5-year deal worth 155 million. And I'm gonna get into it really quick. My initial feeling was disappointment, then a little bit of anger, then you know, uh, just shock and disbelief as a homegrown Met yet again left the team. And um, yeah, it sucks. Uh, Obviously, it's a business. I cannot be mad at Pete. Uh, the Mets were never going to give him a long term contract. This is something that I think we saw last season, right? It was something that I thought was never going to happen, and that was Pete was going to leave. I was kind of in denial last season. Um, and some friends of mine even would text me during the year, like, dude, I don't think Pete Alonso is going to stay. I don't think, David Stearns or the ownership, Steve Cohen, like Pete. They tried to get rid of Pete last year. Um, and that's true. I mean, they played hardball last year. They knew Pete didn't have a market. They took advantage of that. They signed him on a 1-year contract. Uh, Pete had a phenomenal season, opted out of that 1-and-1 contract that he had with the opt out, and Pete did what he had to do. It's funny though that he chose Baltimore of all places to go to. Uh, Listen, he took the money. Um, that's the bottom line. Uh, and you can't blame Pete. I mean, Pete wanted a long-term contract. The Mets weren't going to give it to him. So, as the week went on, I have gotten over it a little bit. I think this is the right move by management, even if myself and other Met fans are not gonna like it, are not gonna accept it until we see what the finished product is. And that's why I say Met fans need to relax a little bit with the social media backlash. A little bit of the hypocrisy that they've been showing too. Um, a lot of Met fans back, I remember in 2024 when I went to the National League Championship with a friend of mine. We were in the stands and we had standing room only, like a lot of fans did. And we got not into an argument, but a discussion about Pete Alonso. How guys were like, "Oh, we can do better without Pete. Pete could leave and we'll be good." And I was there defending Pete, saying we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for him. That miraculous, legendary home run against Milwaukee that now will live on forever as one of Pete's greatest moments and one of the greatest home runs in Met history. Uh, I argued then that we needed Pete. So now all of a sudden, Met fans want to get upset that Pete left. And I think that's kind of ridiculous. So I'm kind of in that camp of I'm dealing with it. I get it. But I also see it from management's point of view where if they needed to move on, they have a different vision of how to build an overall winning team. And they don't think that Pete's a part of that team. And you can get mad at it. You can get into your feelings about it. I know I got into my feelings the first couple of days he was gone. But then yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's like, "How do you feel about Pete? You know, how long did it take you to get over it?" I said, "About 48 hours." Um, and I'm not even lying. I'm completely fine with Pete not being a Met now. He chose the money. To me, he's gonna go down as a lovable, doofy dude that was a Met for 7 years. Uh, I'll remember him for being a prolific home run hitter, but also a bad defender at first base. And there's no denying that he cost us a lot of games defensively. So for fans to now be upset that he's not a Met when a lot of us didn't want him to be a Met a year ago is a little ridiculous to me. So I'm not going to get caught up in the emotions. I'm not going to act like it's the end of the world. I mean, you should hear the radio stations now. Sports radio is getting ridiculous with this whole Pete's gone and what can we do now? Uh, MO. And I think it's a little ridiculous. I mean, he's a great hitter. He's going to be missed. There's no doubt. City Field's definitely going to have a different feeling opening day when I show up. I will be there at opening day. I have a partial plan. I'm proud to say that I have a partial plan. I'll be going to a ton of games with my family this year, so that's cool. Uh, but it does suck that Pete's not going to be there, but it is what it is. The Mets, I think, did the right thing. And now we'll see what happens. What I can't accept is Edwin Diaz signing with the LA Dodgers. That really pissed me off. And to tell you the truth, it pissed off a lot of Met fans. Now, Met fans are also going to get on the Mets for this, but it did come out in Diaz's press conference with the Dodgers when he officially became a Dodger that he chose to leave. He was never coming back. He was never going to let us get a second offer on the table after we gave him the first offer. So the offer that the Dodgers gave him was all that Diaz needed. I think Diaz was a great closer for the New York Mets. I am very appreciative of what he did, but that was the last team he could have went to. I mean, are you freaking kidding me? Uh, I had to break that news to my son, who I'm glad that he's a diehard Met fan like I am. He gets to suffer and be a fan of the orange and blue. Um, when I had to tell him that Diaz went to the Dodgers, he said, "Are you freaking kidding me? That's the only team that he couldn't have went to, and now he's dead to us." Uh, the fact that in his press conference after saying that he appreciated what we did as a franchise for him and how he's always going to be appreciative of the New York Mets, he then had to throw it in our face that the reason why he signed with the Dodgers was because he wanted to go to a winning franchise, a winning organization. He wanted to go to a place where he felt he could win, and he said, and quote, those were quotes that he said, and he also said, "It's easy to win here." So that's why he chose the Dodgers. Well, you know what, Edwin? You can take your trumpets, you can take your narco, and you can shove it up your ass. Because, quite frankly, uh, that was foul what you did. Uh, Pete Alonso took a contract that I can forgive. I can't forgive you stabbing us in the back like that and just taking the easy way out, going to the team that's winning because it's easy. You know what? Good riddance. Um, I always knew you were soft. I used to argue that with my friends all the time. You proved me right, my friend. You were selfish when you got hurt at the WBC, and I argued that. You stunk when you first got here, the first 2 years. Okay, in 2019, you were awful. In 2020, you were just as bad. And then in 2021, you had a decent season. And then in 2022, I give you credit. You had one of the best years a reliever ever had, stat wise. But other than that, what did you do? You came out to a cool song that we all fell in love with the stupid theatrics and the theater and the hoopla and all that, and you stabbed us in the back. So you're dead to us, and I think every Met fan should feel that same way. Um, and if they don't, then shame on them because you turned on us. You took the easy way out, and I want players here that want to win. I want players here that want to take the Dodgers down, not players who want to join them because they can't beat them. I think that was pathetic what you did, and I can't wait for you to fail in LA. With that said, I'm glad that we have Devin Williams. I am kind of excited because it could be a brand new beginning for us Met fans to embrace new blood and new players that actually want to be here. So, with that said, there's a trade that is in the works. So not all is dead this off season. I know it's been a rough off season for Met fans, but a trade that I'm kind of intrigued in is with San Diego. Now, the players involved on the Mets side are unknown right now, but AJ Preller and David Stearns have been in talks about a trade to get some type of guys from the Padres. Um, Highlighted by Mason Miller, which I'm excited about because Mason Miller is a beast. Throws 100 miles plus, um, has a unbelievable slider, makes guys look silly. He's the best uh, reliever in the bunch that's in the package. The other relievers are Adrian Marjan. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's a lefty who throws a lot of heat. Had a really good year last year. He was also young and under control. You also have Jeremiah Estrada, who's really good. And then you have this is the tricky part. You have Nick Pivetta, a starter. I know he's not a top name, but he definitely eats up a lot of innings. He's definitely like a number. I'd say he's like a mid rotation guy, probably like a number three on the Mets if he was on the Mets. We do need depth in the rotation, so that would be nice. And then I'm really interested in this guy because he has a lot of attitude. He's a really good clubhouse guy. A lot of teams have spoken highly of him. Ramon Lariano uh, was a top outfielder a couple of years ago with Oakland, and then he got traded to San Diego and had a really great year last year. So that would kind of check a couple of boxes with the Mets if they were able to pull this big blockbuster trade off. It would pretty much solidify the bullpen, which I think would be fantastic. And then it would give us a starter and an outfielder. So it would really, really help us out, at least in the offseason, to get some players that could fill out this roster. Now, San Diego does like a lot of our middle infielders, so there's some major league talent that would be going back if this trade was made, and also some prospects. One prospect in particular, I know Met fans won't like this, is Jonah Tong. Has been a name that has bounced around a lot with San Diego. Also, Brandon Sproat. Um, Early news is that Nolan McLean's name was brought up, but the Mets have pretty much said that in any trade talks with any teams, Nolan McLean is off limits. So if that's the deal breaker that doesn't get this deal done, then I don't see it happening. If somehow the Mets could figure out a way to move some of these young middle infielders, depending on who they wanted to move, and then, like I said, they are considering moving Jonathan. So that would be interesting, and to get Mason Miller, who's one of the top relievers in the game, and also to get uh, a controllable starting pitcher and an outfielder. I think Jonathan should be expendable. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I would hate to see Jonathan go, but this team needs a lot of help. We need to make some moves. We need to get some depth. And this is what David Stearns is trying to do. He's trying to, and this is why I don't understand the hate with David Stearns. David Stearns is trying to get a team that has a lot of depth. He's trying to build a team that is kind of like, I would compare it to Toronto. I think that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get a lineup that is not just dependent on one or two guys and top heavy like it was last year. So with the offense, I know a lot of people are upset that Nemo's gone, and again, the whole Pete Alonso debacle. But this team was very top heavy last year. So as far as the offense goes, I think David Stearns is trying to build a team that is more balanced and centered around Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor. Now we have Marcus Simeon. We recently signed Jorge Polanco to a 2-year deal. I think that's a great signing for the Mets. We need a DH, and he could move around the whole infield and play multiple positions. So I think that's a really good signing for the Mets. That was a 2-year, $40 million deal. That recently happened Saturday. Um, and then you have a couple of the young guys right now. You have Alvarez, who needs to step up this year. You have guys like Mark Vientos, depending on where they wanted to put him. Um, Ronnie Mauricio, you have Brett Beatty, who I think is going to make a lot of strides at third base. So they're trying to make this team more balanced. I get it. It's not something that Met fans are going to love, but I think it's necessary that you have a lineup from the leadoff spot all the way to number 9 that could hit, could get on base, that a team that can play great defense. I think that's going to be something that's going to be heavily regarded this offseason, and it has been so far with the obviously the trade of Marcus Simeon, Gold Glove second baseman. You now are looking to make either a signing or another trade. Wilson Contreras is another guy that's been in trade talks with the New York Mets. He's willing to waive his no trade clause to come to the Mets. Um, that's obviously something that I think we should be looking into and keeping our eye on as the off season goes on. And again, there's the off season. I mean, look, as far as the off season goes, and this is has a lot to do with the Mets. I think Met fans are going to judge this off season move to move and not necessarily judge it at the end. And I think that's a little unfair. I think that's not how this sport is built. Unfortunately, the off season is extremely long, and we're going to judge these moves as they come in. But I love the analogy of it's like a painting, right? Right now, where Bob Ross and David Stearns is painting, the clouds, and he has a couple of happy trees, and he has, you know, a lot of blank canvas still. And I think we're looking at it like it's incomplete and it sucks. And I think at the end of the offseason, we're going to look at this team and we're going to be satisfied with what he did. Obviously, he needs to do a hell of a lot more. So I understand why Met fans are turning on him, why I'm trying to sell you on the idea that he's a good GM. I still think that he is. I think that we owe him this chance to put his stamp on the New York Mets. For the fans that don't like him, look at it this way. When he was able to run the show in the first season that he came here, we made it all the way to the National League Championship. And you can't say that he didn't get us there because a lot of the moves that he made got us to the National League Championship. He brought in Jose Iglesias, Mr. OMG. Everybody loved that signing. That was David Stearns. Everybody loved Jose Quintana and Luis Severino. Those were guys who he brought in. So, and he brought in a bunch of other guys. He brought in JD Martinez. He brought in Jesse Winker in the trade. These were all moves that he made because he was allowed to make those moves. Fast forward to 2025, and he was forced to make moves he didn't want to make. He had to bring Pete Alonso back. He had to bring in pitchers that I think he was forced to bring in because of payroll, because he overpaid for Juan Soto. And Met fans turned on him because we didn't make the playoffs. I think that's unfair, and I'm going to stand by that. I know that's a topic that I've said on this show for a while now. I'm going to continue to say it. Let the guy run the show and let him help us get a championship. I still believe that he can. I still believe in this ownership. And speaking of the ownership, Steve Cohen's been taking a lot of heat lately, and I think that's a bunch of BS. You have a lot of fans complaining about the casino. I think the casino is going to bring Steve Cohen a hell of a lot more money. Right now, you can't blame the guy for not wanting to spend every single dime of his money on the New York Mets, especially when he's throwing away money and the Mets aren't winning. So right now, I think Met fans need to chill. You need to stop protesting this casino because it's gonna happen. So I think Met fans need to get over it and they need to just take a chill pill. Steve Cohen loves the Mets. He's been a good owner. Let's give him a chance. Okay? Like I said, the Mets need to rival the Dodgers, and the only way you can do that is with sustainable growth and sustainable income. And when you're throwing all your money into the Mets and they ain't winning, you can't blame Steve Cohen for wanting to take a step back and letting his GM run the team a different way. So I think everybody needs to calm down. I think this offseason is going to end in a great way. There's still a ton of free agents left. There's guys from Japan that pretty soon are going to have to figure out where they want to go. So in the upcoming weeks, I think we're going to see where Murakami chooses to go. I think that might blow us away if he chooses us. I would love to have a guy like that. 25-year-old power hitter on the Mets would make us forget about Pete Alonso really quick. Uh, a guy who I really would like is Akamoto. He's the more defensive sound Japanese player coming from Japan this year. Plays third base and first base. Has a little bit of power, but he's more of a overall ball player. Murakami's more of just a power hitter. So I mean, depending on what Met fans would prefer, I would prefer the defensive overall ball player than just the power hitter guy. Because basically you're just getting a younger version of Pete Alonso if we get Murakami. But I mean that's there. Uh, that depends on your preference as a Met fan. I would love either one of those guys. And it'll be interesting to see where Tatsuya Mai goes, the pitcher who's 27 years old, has a great fastball and a couple of off-speed pitches. Um, People compare him to like a Kodai Senga, but we'll see where he goes as well. And then after that, we still have all those other free agents that are still available. And I know Met fans are going to say there's no chance that we're going to get any of these guys, but the way the offseason has gone, I don't think anybody's getting any huge deals of mega years. I don't think that a lot of these free agents are going to get the 9, 10 year contracts that they're looking for. I think they're going to settle for high annual salary, kind of 3, 4, 5 year deals. Whether or not the Mets go that way with Kyle Tucker or let's say an Alex Bregman, you have those guys that are still available. You have Cody Bellinger who's still available. He would be a great addition to the Mets. I know he prefers the Yankees, but everybody thought that Juan Soto preferred the Yankees, and Juan Soto came to the Mets last year, so who knows? Um, all I'm saying is there's a lot of guys still available. I think the offseason still has a long way to go. It's going to be really interesting to see what David Stearns does next after adding Jorge Polanco. Let's see. Um, Honestly, I think the Mets can still make a couple of big splashes this offseason. I know it's been a rough offseason so far. I know that Met fans don't want to hear it, but I think that the Mets did the right thing. Uh, we needed to start anew. We needed to get over this heartbreak. I'm still getting over it a little bit. I can't wait to see Pete as the enemy. To see Pete come in late September. The Orioles do come in late September, so it'll be really interesting to see him play for someone else. And it will be great to boo Edwin Diaz when he comes back in July, again, when the Dodgers come to town. I know I'll be at one of those games. I can't wait to boo his ass when he gets here. Um, and yeah, to cheer on Brandon Nemo in Texas. So this season's going to have a lot of interesting layers to it. I'm very excited about that. I think this team is going to be more well rounded, and I think Met fans should be really excited about having an off season that's a little unorthodox and a little on the unknown. I know that that's scary. I know that Met fans would rather have it come easy, but as we all know as Met fans, it's never easy, right? We're always the underdog. We're always the underappreciated team in New York. And I don't know about you, but I kind of like it that way. So let's just hang in there. And that's it. I'm not gonna plead anymore. I'm just keeping it real, and I'm trying to give you guys the best opinion that I can. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and please like and subscribe, like always. And big shout out to my buddy Mr. Red on TikTok. I love your input. I love your trade ideas. I can't wait to talk to you about some other options. Always have fun with you, and and yeah, I think that's it for this episode. So I will see you guys next week. All right, be good. Let's go Mets, and stay amazing, everybody. Take care.